everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Do Good to Lead Well podcast series. I'm your host, Craig Dowden, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you join us on this episode today. An extra special episode because it's the final one for year 2024. Hard to imagine another year has come and gone. And for those of you who are new to the Do Good to Lead Well universe, a very warm welcome. For those of you who have been with us for quite some time, even from the beginning, really great to have you join us. This podcast series was created as a result of my conversations with CEOs, best-selling authors, TED speakers. And what I wanted to do was bring their experience, their expertise, and their insight to a wider audience. And so we could learn from one another and really think about how we can be at our best. And one of the innovations for this year has been at the end of each month, I record a solo episode where I talk about my observations, cool conversations I've been a part of, interesting research that I've come across, and really provide some insight into my world. And this is the last episode for 2024. It'll be released on Boxing Day. So, again, interesting timing. And what I wanted to talk about for this solo episode was around the importance of failing well so we can achieve our goals in 2025. And with New Year's resolutions right around the corner, maybe many of you have already made that list, or perhaps listening to this episode today or in the process of creating your list of New Year's resolutions, what goals you want to achieve in the new year. I thought it's important to talk about one of the most vitally essential skills when it comes to our overall success, which is failure. Now, just to kind of, maybe I've got the record, scratch there, where you may be wondering, how does failure fit into an episode around maximizing our potential, around achieving the goals that are most important to us, about achieving success? And that's why I was excited to share this with you. And so my purpose for this final episode of 24 is to unlock the secrets of failing well, and also plant the seeds around, hey, how can we do this more often and more effectively in the new year? And right away, as I mentioned, when you heard me say the word failure and even made the proclamation that failure is a critical part for us to be successful, you may have just, this does not seem to make any sense. It's almost up is down and down is up. Just how can those two things go together? And one of the things that I find, and I would encourage each and every one of you to reflect on this, can you even say the word failure without something, some kind of bodily reaction, some kind of physical sensation or emotional, like, generally speaking, we have this really unhealthy relationship with the word, with the idea of failure. It's almost something that we're allergic towards, something that we never want to even consider, don't want to contemplate it, just powering on. And I think one of the goals for 2025 and one of the goals for this podcast is rethink your relationship with failure. And what I hope is by the end of this discussion, you're going to be on your way, or at least open to the possibility that, hey, maybe I want to look at failure a little differently. Now, perhaps part of the reason, or maybe it's the main reason we have such a strong negative response to failure, is because we tend to see all failure as the same thing. And Amy Edmondson, whose work I admire, she wrote a fantastic best-selling book, The Right Kind of Wrong, The Science of Failing Well, which was the top business book of 2023. She's done amazing research. Many of you may be familiar with her extraordinary work around psychological safety and how we can build cultures of psychological safety. And she wrote this amazing book, which I cannot recommend that you check out enough. It is absolutely a riveting read. She does a fantastic job of highlighting that all failures are not created equal. There are different types of failures. And depending on the type of failure we experience, we want to be mindful of that. And so I'm going to share these briefly with you. And so the first one is preventable failures. And if I were to guess which failures the vast majority of us would think about when we hear the word, these are the preventable failures, the basic mistakes, just the captain obvious situations where really it was preventable. It was through carelessness. We were too tired. We didn't follow the instructions. It's around the holidays, maybe for anyone there that failed putting together the latest piece of technology. So all the information was readily available. It was pretty clear what the path was. It's a relatively simple operating system, and purely through human error and poor judgment, we ended up at that space. Fair enough. Now, the next category of failure, they are complex failures. And so the more complicated the system, the more nuanced, the more complex, well, now the higher the probability that something can go wrong because of its complexity, with so many different variables that come into play, with so much uncertainty. Well, now there is the chance that no matter how well thought through, no matter how much we plan for, no matter how much we revise and revamp, something could go wrong. Something does go wrong. And these are considered complex failures because of the ambiguity and complexity. And there's, you look at living in a VUCA world, that's going to happen. And so for her and her research, these two failures are different. And you can tell just by the way in which I presented them. They represent different outcomes. Now, the third category, and I love this, she calls them intelligent failures. And really what's happening here is that we are embarking on new ground. We are taking step forwards in a new land, something we've never experienced before. Well, guess what? Are we going to step to the plate and knock it out of the park the first time? Of course not. Like, that's just, do you get on a bike and ride it perfectly the first time? No, you have training wheels. So failure, making a mistake, is almost inevitable in those circumstances. And these are the kinds of failures that Amy's work has highlighted and talks about how important it is to engage in those failures. And once again, I talked about one of the key outcomes for this podcast. Think about your relationship with the word failure. How do you respond when you even contemplate that you could fail or make a mistake at something? Another really critical question to ask ourselves is around, so how can we have more intelligent failures in our experiential set for the new year? Because intelligent failures now, by virtue of being innovative, mess up and we learn. That's what's powerful. We actually get a chance to obtain new information because of our experiment, because we put things into action. And that is what makes these things so important. Again, if we're looking at having a better year in 2025 than we had in 2024, well, guess what's going to happen if we rinse and repeat 2024? Same results, give or take, going to be pretty well right on. So how do we break through that threshold? How do we take our performance to the next level? Well, we have to stretch ourselves. We have to challenge ourselves. Okay, that's not going through old ground, right? Areas where a path we've already trodden. It's going to be new. It's going to be experimental. And so right away, you can see how powerful this idea is and how we want to really orient ourselves around that. Okay, so how do I reevaluate, reassess my relationship with failure? How can I start to look at those innovations, those new steps in a much more constructive way? Well, there are a couple of amazing acronyms that I've come across for failure. I share them in my coaching practice, I share them in my speaking practice. And last time I talked about fear. And so I guess this is over the last little while, acronyms have been wildly popular in the Do Good to Lead Well universe. Two acronyms for FAIL. The first one is first attempt in learning. So when I fail, first attempt in learning. Love that. And once again, linking it, the reason I love this acronym, let's look at it through the lens of intelligent failure. I'm breaking new ground. First attempt in learning, which also through the acronym and then linking it back with Amy's extraordinary work shines a light on why this is so powerful, why it is essential for us to maximize our potential. First attempt in learning. Now that we've experienced the setback, now that we've gone through a really challenging time, well, we have information, we have new information. And now it's incumbent on us to put that into practice, to now take action as a result. There was, I forget the name of the company, but a massive investment that they made went totally wrong. And I believe it was IBM. And the CEO at the time, the person went in and said, well, I guess I'm fired. And essentially they were saying, no, I just spent X millions of dollars in training and development. Essentially, we're learning through that. So now would be ashamed to let all of that go. Go ahead, put it. What can we take from this? And so I love this idea of viewing failure, and again, intelligent failure, through that lens. The other acronym for FAIL is from action, I learn. Now, a couple of things to notice here. Number one, what's the common word? Learn. It's all about learning. In order for us to learn, we have to take new steps. We have to experiment. We have to broaden our perspective. We have to get information from more diverse sources. Again, in a team meeting, if it's the same person speaking up over and over and over again, guess what my view of the world is going to be? If I watch one television program, one podcast, listen to one artist, well, necessarily I'm going to have a very limited view on things, and it'll be much more of an echo chamber. So the more diverse I can get, the better it is. So again, learning. From action, I learn. And I want to highlight action. A lot of times what can happen is that we contemplate and contemplate and contemplate, right? We're just stuck in the rumination phase. We're stuck in the planning and ultra planning and everything else. And we wait for the perfect moment, for the perfect conditions, until we figured everything out so that we won't fail. We won't make a mistake. Well, if we're doing something new, how can we do not have knowledge? We are making a guess from essentially the most novice position we possibly can. And this is why I love Amy's recommendation, which she encourages us to achieve good failures more quickly. So get out there and just do it. Now, it doesn't mean being reckless, again, because that's going to be a preventable failure. Yet when we are venturing into a new category, a new opportunity, let's just get out there. Let's gather data rather than have everything fully baked. Let's try it out. What's another acronym in the startup space, right? And in other industries and organizations, minimum viable product, the MVP. How do we have essentially the shell of what we're looking for? Because perfection is not the goal. It's to get something out into the universe that we can test, that we can hear people's reactions towards. And the longer that we keep it close to our chests and don't let it out into the world, guess what? The world can be moving by us. And so I love these two acronyms. First attempt in learning, because it demonstrates, again, first, hey, there's going to be multiple. We're going to keep going and keep going. We're always on a learning trajectory. And action. That's how we learn. We learn through action. We gather data. We pivot. We make changes and move on. And so I think for every single one of us, when we look at 2025, when we think about what are the things that are most important to us, perhaps we really want to think about, okay, what opportunities do I have to maximize those intelligent failures? Rather than looking back at this as this catastrophic, unsurvivable occurrence. We see it as data. We see it as a chance to be more agile, to be more adaptive. And also, like anything in life, if we're going to grow a skill, skills development doesn't happen in a vacuum. Skills development doesn't happen in our heads in terms of thinking, oh, yes, what I need to do is X. It's getting out there, it's practicing the sport, it's going to the gym, it's doing the reps. And so, if we are truly looking at raising our failure game and then failing well, I love her subtitle, Failing Well, we got to get out there. We've got to embrace that, those creative risks. We have to embrace the discomfort that we may have and the fear we may face when it comes to experiencing a setback. Yet, when we're on the back end of that, and it's one of the things that I love about the podcast and hosting the podcast, is just the synergy with this extraordinary research work, with the practical application, because so many guests have shared with me, well, what's been their greatest successes? A lot of times it's informed by some of their biggest setbacks, their biggest challenges. They are not afraid to go into new territory and see what comes of that without, yes, do they have hesitation? Do they have concerns? Of course, we're human. Yet at the same time, it's not paralyzing. They take action, back to the A, right? And put it into practice so that they can learn through that. And so many people I spoke with throughout this year, throughout the previous year, that's really it, is saying, hey, what do I need to do? What steps do I need to take? How do I drive this forward? How can I learn? And you probably have made the link, and certainly for those of you who have been part of previous episodes, Carol Dweck's growth mindset. So rather than, if you recall, growth and fixed mindset means that's it. I've maxed out. Doesn't matter. The more effort I put in, whatever I've achieved, that's the limit. So if I don't hit something, if I don't hit a target, I'm done. One and done. There's just no purpose in trying. What's growth mindset all about? That's all around failing well. This is an opportunity. This is a chance for me to learn, to grow, to develop, to experiment, to find different things. And embracing the philosophy of I don't know as another beautiful source of personal empowerment. So many people I've spoken with have shared, and I love this in lots of different industries and sectors. Hey, when I say I don't know, there's so much benefit that comes from that. There's peace that comes with accepting, hey, I can't control everything. I can't know everything. And all I can do is continue to take action, and I continue to learn, and I can continue to bring people on side that I can collaborate with and learn from and develop with. That's the secret sauce. And so I hope through the course of this conversation that I've prompted some reflections around, wonder what my relationship with failure is, and also how that relationship may be affecting some of the actions you take or don't take, some of the decisions you make or don't make, and how might, if you do reassess your relationship with failure, how might 2025 be the best year that you've possibly had? As I close on this year, again, another year, and thank you so much. The wonderful success of the podcast could never have happened without your ongoing support. We've had amazing guests this past year, so many different best-selling authors and TED speakers and CEOs, global thought leaders that have added their perspective to the conversation. And I've learned so much. I can't even try and going through, whenever I attempt to summarize all the things that I've taken out of this journey, it's virtually impossible for me, because every episode, there's so much richness to it. And I think, again, as we move into the new year, really start and reflect on the mantra of this podcast, which is great leadership starts with great self leadership. I hope that's a message that has landed with you over the past 12 months or 24 months, however long you've been with us, and continue to think about and reflect on how we can be at our best. What are the core questions we need to ask ourselves? What are the key conversations we need to have with the people we care about personally and professionally in a world that continues to move faster than we can fathom? There's so much change, there's so much energy, and there can be lots of conflict and concern. Really getting rooted in who we are, our values, and what we want to accomplish, that's a critical part to it. And so thank you for being a part of this journey of this podcast over the last year. And I can't wait to restart the conversation in January 2025. So to everybody, thank you so much for your ongoing support. Happy holidays. Hope you have amazing time with you, your family, your friends. And I look forward to hearing your stories around how you leveraged failure to be your best self in 2025. Take care, everyone. Happy holidays. Bye for now.